Hello and welcome to MorningFile. I'm your host, Emma McCarty, and I'm joined with Councillor Nann, the Ward 3 City Councillor. Today we will be discussing the recent Sobi bike share closure and bike share program reopening. So the original Uber contract with Sobi bike share was set to end in February 2021. However, Uber announced the contract would end instead on June 1st, 2020. So you were and are advocating to keep a bike share program running in the city of Hamilton. Why do you believe it's important that the Hamilton residents have access to a bike share program?
First of all, thanks for having me on the show. And it's a critical link. Bike share programs are a critical link for residents to be able to move about freely within any city. And here in Hamilton, we know that our subscription base has continuously grown as Hamilton Bike Share has evolved over the years that we've had it here. And most importantly, during this pandemic, it's been a critical link for people to be able to move freely, to move safely, and to keep themselves physically distanced while also enjoying the benefits that come with cycling, which is physical health, mental well-being. And the World Health Organization, in fact, says that it's the preferred mode of transportation in urban settings during pandemics and during specifically COVID. And so for me, it's a vital link. It's part of our goal and vision towards Hamilton becoming a multimodal city where people can walk safely, where people can cycle safely. Folks who want to access transit are able to do so on a robust system so that we are reducing the footprint and also the air impact and environmental impact of single vehicle use as well.
So when initially advocating for the program, you've received some opposition from the other councillors. Why do you think that you had opposition from them?
Well, the solution that I brought to the table for the first part was fundamentally to say that this is an essential multimodal link for residents here in the city, that residents have clearly demonstrated that they're interested in this system being in operation. And I believe fundamentally that when bike share programs are invested in through public funds, through municipal dollars, that we actually build the systems in a way that can be more sustainable for future generations, and also make sure that it's not, left to the whim of some private entity that, like we experienced, would just yank the cord and then render these vehicles and render the bicycles completely out of use. So the solution that I had put to the table was to use discretionary funds that each ward councillor in the lower city has access to. So Ward 3, we have a bit of a cycling reserve fund that had been allocated by previous term of council, Councillor Matthew Green, for infrastructure projects that hadn't gotten completed on cycling infrastructure. So I had $300,000 set aside in discretionary dollars that I had earmarked and allocated to cycling. And we knew that what would be required to keep the system up and running was about $400,000, give or take. And so I talked with the other councillors bordering my own Ward 3, Councillor Jason Farr in Ward 2 and Councillor Maureen Wilson in Ward 1, who also have a lot of residents who benefit from and rely on the Sobi bike share system. So we all kind of figured out how much we had in our reserve funds and cobbled together a allocation of public funds in order to keep the bike share seamlessly operating during a transition away from Uber. Unfortunately, that vote lost on a tie, so it's hard to swallow that we lost it. But the way that our governing process works, a tie is not a majority, so therefore the vote and the motion failed. But quickly, what was clear is that a lot of councillors did understand the value of bike share. A lot of councillors understand the value to our residents for cycling. They just aren't convinced yet that investment is required from the municipality. And so I think that's where we fundamentally had the split in the council, is that 50% of council believe that this should be an investment by city with public funds, and 50% who felt there should be no taxpayer dollars going into investing in operating the Sobi bike share program. So at the end of the day, luckily we had a robust community that was able to come together and cobble together the donations, whether through individual donors or organizational donors, and cover the operational cost difference that was required to keep the system up. So that's where we ended up, and that had unanimous support from council. But fundamentally, from my perspective, I think if we think about bike share as being part of transit, then the future of a sustainable model will require public investment. Every other city in Canada that has had a viable bike share program has had sustainable, stabilizing investment through the municipality in order to make sure that it's operating and reliable when residents need it most. So I think the future of bike share, if it's up to me, and also if we think about you know, as the future unfolds and there's no normal to go back to, and we need to think very mindfully about what we're investing in, it's clear to me that we need to invest in transit, and that's going to require municipalities, provinces, and the feds to come to the table and make sure that we are funding multimodal transportation for our residents.
Yeah, kind of just going off of that then, how have other municipalities found success in funding their bike share programs?
Yeah, so if you look at Montreal, which was the first municipality in Canada to launch off their bike share program, they started off by using funds that were generated through their parking reserves. So every time a Montrealer pays for parking in the city of Montreal, a portion of those funds go towards supporting the bike share program. And so they literally drew the line from a financial perspective of parking pays for X, Y, and Z. And part of the X, Y, and Z is the bike share program. And then the City of Toronto has also kind of ebb and flowed in terms of figuring out what is the right share and split between municipal investment and a private entity investment. And I think they've gone through a couple of iterations as well.
Okay, so the program then has been saved by the not-for-profit Hamilton Bike Share, and that's going to be funded until next February. Does the City of Hamilton have any sort of plan on how that will look to continue the program post-February?
That's part of the motion that was passed unanimously, was to support basically accept the $400,000 plus that had been cobbled together through our community and private donors, but also to look at what does the sustainable plan for Sobi look like? What does the future of Hamilton's bike share look like? We literally earlier in this term had approved the expansion of the bike share program so that it could cover more geographic areas in the city. The best thing about bike shares is that you start off where the need is the most, let the program build its ridership, and then evolve to meeting the needs of areas that could be considered, you know, not as convenient for folks to cycle to. But what we've heard really clearly from residents across Hamilton is there's residents in Waterdown that would like to see a bike share program. There are residents in Dundas that are benefiting from the new racks that had gone in there. We've got residents further in the East End here in Hamilton who'd like to be able to connect to the cycling infrastructure that we've invested in as a municipality in order to ride bikes. The kind of funny thing about the whole situation is, like, we've literally been investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into cycling infrastructure, albeit that we're advancing them, that we're making them more protected, we're investing in separating those lanes, making sure that women and children specifically feel comfortable riding their bikes. The other reality is if we're going to invest in all this road infrastructure for cycling, then why wouldn't we match that with the operational bike share program that enables residents to use that as an option? So bike share means that residents don't have to fork out money out of their own pockets to buy their own private cycle. People don't have to worry about security issues as they can just pick up a bike share bike and, you know, drop it where they're designated to be dropped off in the racks. And it just really does enable people to use cycling, to choose cycling. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, I'm hopeful, and I'm actually quite clear that we're going to see the bike share program expand to other geographic areas in the city as well.
Yeah, so in the future then, do you think it's possible that the bike share program could meld into the Hamilton transportation system, similar to like an HSR sort of situation, or?
That's one model for us to, I think, seriously consider as a municipality. The future of transit is up for us to design right now. Every single municipality around the world is recontemplating, what does transit look like? How can we be pandemic ready? How can we be climate action taking in terms of positive climate action? These are huge issues that every municipality needs to be reconciling with right now. And I think the future of transit is one that I would like to see that includes bikes, that includes buses, that includes LRT. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, a green system that is really well connected and allows people to move from one system to the next, from cycling to walking to bus to train in a seamless, interconnected way so that folks across this beautiful city get a chance to enjoy everything that the city has to offer, as well as take care of the day-to-day life stuff, right? Being able to commute to school, being able to commute to work, being able to, drop off your kid to daycare on your way to work. And to be able to do that on a public system requires deep investment in making sure that our system is really thoroughly connected. And that's the kind of future vision for Hamilton that I see, and I know that a lot of Hamiltonians are invested in.
Yeah. So kind of then, what has the response been from the community that you've seen with this back and forth type situation?
Yeah, so I mean, it was clear by seeing nearly 7,000 Hamiltonians signing a petition to say that we are calling on the City Council to continue bike share. That in and of itself is a really clear indicator, but also here in Ward 3, I've received, I think we kept track at about 175 different emails from individuals who are based here in Ward 3 who were sharing their stories about how much they rely on bike share and how much it enables them to move around the city. For some residents, it was pretty incredible to hear the stories of a gentleman who's in his 70s. And when COVID hit, his gym had been closed, and he, because of his predisposed health conditions, really needs to keep his heart functioning well and needs to do physical activity. So he was one of those new subscribers during COVID. And when the announcement came that it was going to get closed, it was like such a tremendous impact on his personal well-being. And he fell in love with cycling. He fell in love with how much it enabled him to move around the city and enjoy the city in a different way. And I think if we think about transit and we think about cycling from that multi-generational lens, if we're thinking about, students going to school on Sobi bikes, and we think about seniors being able to use cycling as a way to stay healthy, to work out their hearts, to work out their bodies, then we've got a system that really is able to live into the motto that we have for our city, which is a city where you can raise a child and age successfully. And so if that's our motto, our bike share system is part of it.
That was Ward 3 City Councillor Nrinder Nann speaking about why it is vital we keep a bike share program in Hamilton and what she thinks the future of bike share might look like within the city of Hamilton. For more MorningFile interviews, as well as other exciting content, visit cfmu.ca.